Over the past centuries, this place has been called Aliquippa, Tussie's, Waynesburg, and Bloody Run. Today, it's the corner of Main Street and Spring Street in Everett, Pennsylvania. Before the Revolutionary War, before the French-Indian War, this place wasn't a town. It was just a crossroad of two Indian trails. Spring Street was a minor trail that moved north into the Woodcock Valley. Main Street was a major trail that crossed the Allegheny Mountains. For centuries, Indians would use this trail to cross the mountains, but there were no permanent Indian settlements here. Pennsylvania's permanent Indian settlements were mainly in the east. Early Pennsylvania Indians included the Susquehannock, the Delaware, and the Iroquois Nation in the north. In 1650, there were about 15,000 Indians in what's now Pennsylvania, but in less than a century, the Indian population here had dropped below 2,000. The Susquehannock Indians were gone, dominated by and absorbed into the Iroquois Nation. The Delaware Indians had accepted land sales to William Penn and the British. And as the numbers of settlers grew in the east, most Delaware Indians moved west into the Ohio Valley. The year is 1740. Everett is still just a crossroad of two Indian trails. The Iroquois Nation dominate New York. The French are moving into Canada. The British control eastern Pennsylvania, and Indians dominate the Ohio Valley. These Allegheny Mountains were a buffer zone between the British in the east and the Indians in the Ohio Valley. Now, a few Indians and whites mingled along the Allegheny Mountain Trail here, but with rare exception, permanent shelters were not tolerated. The resources here in this buffer zone, in these Allegheny Mountains, could be shared by everyone, but owned by no one. It wasn't perfect, but there was still relative harmony. That harmony was shattered when this Allegheny Mountain buffer zone became a war zone in 1754. The French sparked the start of the French-Indian War when they marched south here into the buffer zone. They allied with the Iroquois Nation, built Fort Duquesne in what is now Pittsburgh, and threatened to push the British out of central Pennsylvania. The British responded, building Fort Loudon, Fort Bedford, and Fort Ligonier along the Allegheny Mountain Trail. They also made improvements to the Indian Trail so they could move heavy artillery and supplies through these mountains. This Indian Trail is now a road. Over the course of a decade, the British would move thousands of troops into these mountains, defeat the French at Fort Duquesne, and finally remove most of their troops from here in the buffer zone. But the floodgate had been opened. The British road made it easier for white settlers to get here. The British forts made it safer for white settlers to live here. And by 1758, a few dozen settlers had established a small community in this place they now called Aliquippa. That name would soon change to a name that just wouldn't go away. Our next stop, Bloody Run Creek.